Can everybody hear me? Hello. Hi, everybody. Yeah, so I think this is going to be a really interesting session, especially when you meet the two panelists that are going to come up on stage. And cultural intelligence and what that means to consumer experience. As everybody knows, consumer experience is at the heart, or should be at the heart, of every single business model for every single organization or services that are provided to consumers. Without that, I think everybody and all of you would agree that services or products would be dead in the water. I think Steve Jobs showed us early on in the day why that was so important and why Apple products do so well today and continue to excite people, even if it is the same thing and different, with very little changes come out every single year. Why people talk about the Amazon experience and the ease of buying. Why people talk about certain stores that we could go to and the services that are provided, even though they're paying a premium. So we can go on, and I think those would change from country to country, from probably region to region. And that's where I think, ladies and gentlemen, cultural intelligence comes into play, because that's where things start to get different and interesting. And at the heart of that, and every single organization, that's where product strategies are based around consumer experience. That's where technologies are based around what that should be. Every single technology group is working to get that magical UI or user experience just right? Your marketing teams are making sure, your sales teams are making sure, your brand teams are making sure that they get those requirements right and they're able to articulate it to those other teams that are working away in the background. And even when budgets are set, that's what gets the first cut, consumer experience. And of course, then the arguments will go on that, yes, a good employee experience drives good consumer experience, and so on and so forth. And now, of course, AI is all over. And I honestly don't think, this is personal opinion, that we've scratched the surface. We don't know what that impact is going to look like, whether that is in corporate organizations, whether that's in the world of academia, whether that's in the world of in everyday life. We're still going to find out, and I think it's going to take the next couple of years to really understand the impact. But again, coming back to cultural intelligence, and how do we deal with the nuances of unraveling what that means. You're selling the same product, you're selling the same services across geographies. But when you listen to the colleagues that are going to come up on stage, I think you're going to be understanding a little bit about the nuances and the kind of hard work that goes on behind the scenes to make sure that that cultural intelligence comes to play. So with that, I'm going to ask Meet and Megha to come up and introduce themselves. Maybe if you could start, Meet or Megha, with a brief intro, and then we can get into some questions.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining this session and looking forward to an engaging conversation today. I'm Megha. I'm a senior director at Uber and have been with the company for almost 9 years now. One of the very first few tech employees here for Uber in Hyderabad, or Uber Tech in India as well. So it's been an amazing journey over the last 9 years. I lead a team called Global Scale Solutions. Localization and internationalization is one core part of the charter for my team, which enables Uber to operate in 10,000 plus cities in the world, and that's why I'm here at the panel. But we do a lot of other stuff like AI data labeling, maps, data, testing, bunch of different capabilities for Uber. Looking forward to the conversation today.
Thank you, Megha. Hi, my name is Meet. I'm the Executive Vice President for Warner Brothers Discovery. I've been with the company for about 5 years. I recently relocated to Hyderabad, actually just about a couple months ago from the US, where I've lived for the last 25 years. And I'm going to be stationed here for a couple of years as we build out our teams. Primarily, for folks who don't know, I'm part of our global streaming organization where we build digital apps, primarily streaming apps, Discovery Plus here in India and many parts of the world. And then we have a second streaming app called Max, which has been rolling out globally over the last 18 months or so. So my teams are primarily building those apps.
Thank you, Megha. Thank you, Meet. Okay. And I realized I didn't introduce myself. So Sudha, Sharma, folks, I am the site leader for Thomson Reuters Hyderabad. We are the biggest global center for TR, and I'm also the global head of corporate systems and employee technology services for TR globally. Very happy to be here, and when you all get a chance, we have a really talented team that's manning a booth, so please go check them out and say hello. Okay, so question for both of you. We are in interesting times with generative AI, right? And how would you describe the approach and kind of the strategies that you think your organizations are deploying to refine or redefine your product strategies, or to make sure that they resonate with your consumers?
Sure. Yeah, so broadly, I look at generative AI, or that's how I would see like Uber looking at it as well. Generative AI is a means to an end and not an end itself. And I think it's important to underscore that point, especially when we talk of customer intelligence and the nuances when it comes to cultural intelligence as well. Because at the heart of it, you use any sort of technology and innovation to elevate the experience you can offer to the customers. What ends up happening with Gen AI and any buzzing technology is you just want to implement it for the sake of doing it versus really thinking about the purpose and the objective why you would use that technology. So I think at the heart of it, Uber is prioritizing generative AI in areas where you can create that magic, where you can create that magical user experience for our customers all over the world. So whether it's on Eats, our Uber Eats app, which of course doesn't operate here in India, but having an AI assistant to enable better ordering, whether it is having generative AI embedded in support so you get access to easy support quickly and reliably all over the world. There are multiple areas where we are integrating generative AI, but that's not necessarily because generative AI is the thing that we want to insert everywhere, but we do believe that that's the right technology to elevate the experiences in those use cases. From an approach standpoint, there are central frameworks and governance around leveraging generative AI that we have applied globally at Uber just to make sure basics like data security, privacy, et cetera, are taken care of. But beyond that, we have actually empowered all of our engineering and product teams to think about generative AI as any other technology that is available to you to really ship products that make a meaningful difference in how our customers experience all around the world. Hope that answers.
Yep.
Great, thank you, that was great. Maybe, I can add to that. Like the way we think about it is basically we think of Gen AI in two basic buckets, right? There's a bucket that helps increase the efficiency of anything you do, any process, any product improvement, anything that you could do for the customer. So that's just meaningfully improving or making it more efficient, faster, cheaper, better quality, however you think of that, right? And then their second aspect of that is things that were just not possible before, right, are now possible because of this technology, right? And that's like a meaningful change in either the experience or some things that you could build that we were not able to build. So I'll take one specific example that we just recently launched was a product called Caption AI, in partnership with Google, we've kind of enabled captioning of all our content globally, right, in different languages as we go from country to country, and that has significantly improved the speed at which we can do it and the quality at which we can do it. And that helps us get our content to more people much faster than we could do before, right? It used to take months and months of captioning to make sure it's right and things like that, and now it can be done a lot faster, almost 50 to 60% faster as well, with much higher quality as well, right? So that's definitely one example where we're leaning in on that technology.
I think that makes so much sense. I think, the first thing, one of the first things that I think everybody caught on to is how much can we automate, how much, process can we take out, and how much manual things can we take out of it, for sure, which makes sense. Megha, I think you kind of referred to it, mentioned it, is, Uber Eats is not available in India. And, from a regulatory perspective or and then you already called out some of the things that are not available here versus the Western states, et cetera. But can you talk about, other than some of the capabilities, how are you using innovation maybe that, again, from a cultural standpoint, to make sure that there may be some opportunities that you would have here that you may not have there? And then how would you deal with the controls and some of the regulations that you would have there versus here, or vice versa?
Yeah, just to address like the Uber Eats question, I think you're not in India, it's more of a business strategy decision versus a regulatory one. I mean, there are food delivery apps in India as well. But putting that aside, more broadly talking about regulation, the way we think about it as Uber is technology or any innovation can actually enable collaboration and co-creation of solutions. And you can engage more deeply with policymakers, communities. In the case of Uber, we engage with our earners and drivers, et cetera, to build solutions that make sense for the market or make sense globally as well. If I sort of circle back, a few years ago, Cash was a product that we launched in India that went global into other markets, LATAM, et cetera, because the other cash-heavy markets didn't have that option. Now, if you look at it, India is far ahead compared to many other countries on being digitally savvy with digital payments and so on. So again, a lot of innovation there that's being built in India, but for the world, so to say, right? So many such examples where you can look at the cultural nuances or the technology advancements in a market, pick them up, and then build for the globe. Specifically coming to the regulatory frameworks, we have many areas where, for example, worker protections in the case of gig workers. It's an area that has a lot of regulatory flux in general. But if you think about it from a technology innovation standpoint and technology partnership standpoint, there's a lot that can be done. And an example is the eShram portal, where you have portable benefits that a gig worker can use across platforms that they work on, right? So there's a lot of interesting innovation that's helping collaborate with the policymakers and the communities to build solutions that make sense for the market.
Yeah, thank you for that. And Meet, from we can't talk about consumer experience without going to user personas. And, I had the opportunity of touring your very fancy office digs here. I mean, let me tell you, we walked away, a bunch of us walked away really jealous. But also kind of looking at your, some of the things that you were doing in India, looking at some of the movies or the streaming things that you had in India that were different. How do you think you're using user personas and things like that, those kinds of elements that would be different for Warner Brothers Discovery versus the Western countries?
Yeah, I mean that's a good question. Like if you think about it, right? We are, at the end of the day, we're a content company, right? Our product is the content we make, and we just deliver it to consumers in very, very different forms, right? Streaming enables us to get a whole bunch of content in front of people, and if you think about the biggest challenge we have, I shouldn't say challenge, I consider it like an opportunity, right? Is personalization, and that's kind of where the question you asked is user personas that matter, right? If you think about in India, if we had cricket rights, like almost every streaming service, cricket would be the number one. But we have, like, if you think about, like, if you go to Latin America where we have sports rights, primarily soccer is a very big thing, right? More recently, Warner Brothers had the rights to the Olympics out in Europe, all of Europe. And it was a very interesting challenge for us that at any given time there were, especially during the early stage of the Olympics, there were more than 55 or 60 sports being played concurrently at the same time. And we were streaming all of them, right? But if you're in Sweden, there is a pole vaulter who's very famous in Sweden, and people are interested in that. If you're in England, you want to listen to, like, they have their tennis player or they have their soccer team and things like that. So, right, like, if you think about the user persona, this is just in sports. Now you can kind of get down to, like, people who like reality TV, people who like action movies, people. So it kind of, like, our entire platform has to support that, depending on the country, depending on the person. So it gets down very granular for very different, for every level, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, India has its, like I said, has its own personality. If you look at a lot of our content that we have is primarily, the way I would describe it is, it's international content with a local flavor. If you look at
Yeah.
all the content we have on Discovery Plus and all, it's been all sort of flavored for the Indian market, and that's kind of, again, addressing the Indian persona there.
You know, I can see that. I think from a sports perspective, you certainly, you know, that's spot on. You know, there's so many things that are so unique to those geographies and the cultures that are so personal, deeply personal to where we are. But then you also touched on things that, you know, like reality television,
Yep.
you know, are localized. But does that take away a little bit from the creativity, you know, rather than allowing things to, you know, just come up with something new versus taking an existing, I mean, you know where I'm going with that,
Yeah.
right? So,
I think it's a fair question. I probably think it's like it enhances the creativity, if you ask me,
yeah,
right? Because it injects a certain localness into the content that
sure.
would not have happened if we had, let's say, not been present in India, right?
Yeah.
We would not have been forced to sort of extend the creativity of that particular asset or product from
Yeah.
that perspective. And I think it pushes the boundaries of what we can do, and it doesn't always work,
Yeah.
as you know, right? There are going to
Yeah.
be some good ones and some that will hit, and some that will obviously not even resonate with the local markets. But that's the business we are in, unfortunately,
Yep.
or fortunately, however you say
Yep,
it.
yep, agreed. And I think the other thing, you know, we would say is it allows the world to come closer together, you know, when you build on that. And then maybe coming back to generative AI and cultural intelligence and consumer experience. I mean, we all know that AI, at least, you know, for every single CFO across every single organization, their focus is going to be on the bottom line and how much more can we automate, how much can we take out and things like that. And every single transformation, significant transformation over the years we've seen, has succeeded in growing jobs. And you know, probably same thing is going to happen with AI. But what do you both think, starting with you, Meet, and then I'll go to Megha, how do you think this one is going to play out? Because you both come from different industries, and especially with consumer experience, how do you think this is going to play out?
Yeah, I think you kind of touched on it when you did the introduction. I think we're just barely scratching
Yeah.
the surface, right? I think we have a long way to go. Personally, if you ask my opinion, I think we're a little bit of a gold rush going on right
Yeah.
now, where it's brand new technology. Everybody wants to get into it for the sake of getting into it. But I think we haven't really, we're starting to figure out like where this is going to help, right? I think, for example, lots of people, the Copilot sort of thing, where it helps you write some code. I think we've seen lots of companies are publishing metrics about that, and I think there are some improvements you can make, but it's still very early days, right? And similarly to that effect, like if you look at from a customer experience perspective, again, right? I think we're kind of the example I mentioned. Similarly, we have our business is actually a little bit more unique, where there's some challenges in terms of legal situations with the actors not wanting to embrace Gen AI yet, how that affects the industry, what it means for them, things like that. Today, the Gen AI could actually generate a piece of video, and that could be content that we could make, right? So that's definitely a very
That is
disturbing.
so.
That is very
It's
disturbing.
really interesting. Could you elaborate a little bit on that, please? An
I mean,
actor not wanting to use AI.
I wouldn't say they don't want to use it. I think
Yeah.
they just, I don't think people, I don't think anybody understands. There's
Yeah.
no regulation yet.
Yeah.
What are the boundaries? What are the limits of what it can do and things like that? So I think, like I said, it's still very early
Yeah.
days, and I think people are still trying to figure out what this means and where this will net out, right? So I think that's part of the reason why there's probably, a lot of tentativeness around it,
Yeah.
right? But there are other areas, kind of like the caption AI example that I gave, that
Yeah.
seems relatively simple. That we do that work today.
Yeah.
We can do it faster, cheaper, better quality,
Yeah.
using technology, which is nothing new. It's just the technology is slightly different, but we've done this with technology for hundreds of years in just different ways, right? So.
Yeah. No, I think in general, with any technology, right? I think the heart of it is, are you just like going in with an open mindset, right? Like learn fast, fail fast, iterate fast, pick up fast, and like keep shipping, especially as technologists. So I look at generative AI in that context as well. And if you look at, the power, and you were speaking about jobs and how it will be impacted and what the view is, and we debate about that a lot in different contexts. So for example, in localization and internationalization, generative AI obviously has accelerated that space or maybe transformed quite dramatically, right? Where a piece of translation can be done really quickly, and where machine translation probably was slightly more robotic, now it like humanizes and brings the cultural context and so on. So our job's going to go away for linguists. But the reality on the other side is you're just seeing a lot more content generation that now needs to be localized. So there's just like more content creating more jobs, or at least retaining the jobs, and that's one view of the world. We get asked a lot at Uber, like, what about autonomous vehicles? Again, another form of AI. And, will that take jobs away? What happens to drivers, et cetera, right? First of all, with infrastructure, regulation, et cetera, autonomous vehicles becoming a reality worldwide is going to take time. That's one reality. But the second bit is we are also, as a platform, evolving. Uber now offers people to be able to do data labeling tasks, et cetera, including our drivers. So we keep talking about it. Maybe they'll be the ones training the machines. And so jobs might actually change and look different, but our openness to sort of adopt technology is the thing. And if you look at generative AI more broadly, every job is getting AI enabled. Is the job going away? Probably not. But what Meet said earlier, can it make the jobs more efficient, higher quality, maybe leverage more of your intelligence to make that better? Probably yes, and that's what probably all of us want to do, right? Like enrich our jobs and make that more valuable. So I feel like if used in the right way, we can really tap the potential of any technology, including generative AI, to actually grow our skills, make ourselves more productive, and also just evolve into newer kinds of jobs that probably will be in the future. We don't know what that is yet, but just having that open mindset is going to be key.
So I'm going to ask you both probably the last question of this session, because when I saw cultural intelligence and as it pertains to consumer experience, and then when you throw generative AI, I knew we could be here for hours, especially with the two panelists coming from the two organizations that they do. Absolutely. So when you think about, again, a slightly unknown world, and yes, scratching the surface, of, especially with AI, but keeping consumer experience at the heart of it, and keeping, the cultural India at the center of it. What do you think your three priorities would be from a consumer standpoint?
Yeah, sure. So I think if you think about India, India is a very unique market, I think, globally, right? We are, like I said, we just literally yesterday, we launched in 7 countries in Asia Pacific our product, and I think we're starting to line up when we bring our product to India as well, right? And there's lots of kind of couple of things that I already mentioned. One is, hey, our content is relatively global. Some of the brands we have, like the DC Universe, Superman, Batman, etc., Harry Potter, Game of Thrones, House of Dragon, Last of Us, Dune, Lord of the Rings, a lot of those travel very well internationally. But India as a market some of that is, people like it, but it's not enough, right? There needs to be a sufficient enough dose of local content. So I think that's kind of one of our, how do you balance that, and what is the right level of balance and things like that, right? So that's absolutely number one. The other more unique part about India is also the number of languages, right? There are many languages, and what do you prioritize where, kind of things like that. Again, something like generative AI might help us accelerate some of that.
Yeah.
All right, but that's, again, something that we'd look into and things like that. So I think those are probably a couple big things that we're looking at right now.
Yeah, I think from an Uber lens, if I look at like the Uber company mission, right, it is about reimagining the way the world moves for the better. I see that apply equally to India, right? Like our objective when we come back to work every day is how do we make sure that every person who's looking for a ride, or more broadly across Uber globally, going anywhere and getting anything, making it like magical and seamless with the click of a button, right? Like, so every effort is going towards that. Now coming home closer to India, it's really about understanding the customer preferences here and how, while we take a more global approach, also build global but also stay local and relevant is, I think, the key there. 2-3 examples to just like call that out. Like, for example, like any other market, but more so in India, flexibility, reliability, affordability is key. So we've expanded the portfolio of our products, Uber Moto, Auto, Uber Bus, and so on. So people have various options for commute, right? When you think about reliability, we have Uber Reserve, you can book prior and it's almost like a guaranteed trip that happens, which is again another one. Trust is a key thing here specifically in the India market. So there's a whole nuance about the brand as Uber, but also really prioritizing safety, whether it is customers preferring to call a driver with an anonymized sort of number and check on things, working with legal or public safety teams, like you have an SOS button to call for support when you have safety issues. So like really innovating on the safety side. And then the last bit is really understanding that India as a market does have like a family-oriented buying behavior. So we have launched options like you can book a trip for somebody else, which was actually launched keeping an Indian consumer in mind who would book a trip for their mother or for their kid or somebody else. Now, of course, used globally as well, right? So, I mean, I share these examples to say that we are rooted in being customer-obsessed. One of our values is like build with heart. So really understanding what each and every rider and driver here in India are focused on, picking up the core themes, and building towards our mission of reimagining how the country also here in India moves for the better is what our core purpose is.
Thank you, Meet. Thank you, Megha. I think, from my perspective, this was super interesting. And I think if we were to be anywhere in these times, I think this is one of the best places to be in order to learn, especially from a consumer experience standpoint. There's such a diversity of input and feedback we can get from India. It's so much educated and literate workforce, and people that live here and can provide a variety of feedback. And sometimes you don't even have to ask for it, and you get it regardless. So with that, and when you throw in AI, we are a content company as well. I think we are looking at technologies that can help us really dig in and have those analyses and assessments that can make our products really even richer. So with that, I'm going to thank you both for a fantastic session, and have a fantastic afternoon, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.